where does the creativity come in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we all, to greater or lesser degrees, think of ourselves as MacGyvers in emergency medicine, right? The idea that we'll invent our way out of whatever situations are going on. And I think if you were a fly on the wall in our ERs right now, and you're watching us think through how to invent better responses to the COVID epidemic, we're literally duct taping pieces together and saying, okay, well, what if we did this? Like, would that deliver oxygen better in this circumstance? Like, without exposing people to virus? Like, how can we make this just this constant stream of invention? Which part of that goes back to the don't waste suffering idea, right? The idea that anything that our patients are going through, we want to be able to treat the next person in the door better than that person that comes in. And that's part of our commitment to our patients. I think that having in some sense, part of the opposite of creativity is fear, right? And brittleness of response. And I think that if you go, and this sends all the way back to the Stoic idea of like memento mori, right? Remembering that you're mortal is one of the key concepts of this. And if you start with that, and you start addressing the fear of death, and you start addressing the fear of response, and you sort of build outward from that, what you get is not fear, but the space to be creative, right? The space to really flex and have an appropriate adaptable response to what goes on around you. And some joy to approach it with, right? The idea of, again, the Stoic idea of amor fati, right? To play whatever hand of cards you're dealt with joy. And there's some definite joy and satisfaction in jury rigging something that works amazingly well like that. Like, that's always a great moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, every invention starts with some creativity, right? It's like we have a problem, we don't know how to fix it, and somebody's got to come up with something.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could argue that that's one of the main reasons why, like, times of war or times that we're dealing with right now, are almost the best for creativity, because we're forced into a situation where we need to learn how we can deal better with the situations of life.
Yeah. And I think that's also really true in terms of your own self, right? Like creativity in terms of rewiring yourself. Like, I always think about it like, man, things are terrible. It's really challenging. Sort of like, you've already got the hood up on your car. So you can also fix some stuff while you're in there, right? You're going through the intellectual and sort of like existential pain of changing your vision of yourself and your vision of humanity. Like, you're in there tinkering around. You may as well swap some components out while you're in there and try to give yourself a better engine on the other side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Constantly trying to improve whatever situation you're dealt. And
yeah,
I guess the last question that I wanted to ask you, as an emergency ER doctor, what can we do when we come into the hospital and we've got an emergency? When we, when we're the ones on your table, if we can talk to you, like, what can people in the public do that would support you in what you're doing, like from the opposite side of an emergency, right? How do you think people would best respond from the opposite side of what you're seeing?
That's a really interesting way to ask that question. I'm not sure I've ever heard that asked in terms of like, if I find myself on your table, which I hope that you never do.
Yeah.
But, I think, that there is a difference between compassion and empathy, right? And I think that empathy is seeing suffering in another human and that causing a mirror image of that suffering in you, right? So, your sister is sad and crying, and so you are sad because of that, and you showed that by being there and crying. Compassion is sort of more of the idea of, you see suffering and it produces in you the desire to fix that thing, or to respond in a way that helps the person through that suffering. And it looks really different, right? You're maybe not there crying with the person. Instead, you're there sort of like fixing or helping or just being a sounding board or something like that. And I think that when I have my emergency gear on and I am being an emergency doctor, I don't often provide empathy as much as I provide compassion. But it doesn't mean that I don't love and care about the person as a human. But I think that to really do my job well, the person who is sick needs me to be about compassion and not empathy. They don't want an ER doctor that breaks down and cries when they're hurt, right? They want an ER doctor that gets in there and helps them fix it. And I think that that can come off in that situation as being gruff or uncaring. And I wish that I had the time to sit down with everybody and explain this and be like, hey man, like human to human, I love you, but like, I'm just going to pull on that bone a little bit right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, but that and if you find yourself in an emergency, you don't waste that suffering either, right? You go home and you think about that and you try to figure out what happened. How did you respond to it? How can you do better about it? And as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about coming into this, there was something that really stood out to me, which is Seneca's letters, number 91. Right, Seneca letter 91. It's called about the burning of Lyon, where he talks to his friend about the city of Lyon burning overnight. And if you sit down and read that, and that's my challenge to anybody listening to this, right? Is like if you were practicing Stoic, you go out and you read Seneca letter 91, and you think about how that reflects on the world today, because it talks about this vast, unanticipated, incredibly fast scale of chaos where the whole city burns overnight. And Seneca's, he's writing his letters to Lucilius, and he's talking about sort of like advice on life as he goes through it. And he goes, how do you respond to a situation that is unprecedented, unexpected, and catastrophic, which is so much of what we're facing right now? And his advice is deep and meaningful, and talks not only about how to handle the entire city burning, but also about how to use this as an impetus to retune yourself in terms of how you view the universe in general. So I don't know if I get to assign homework to listeners of this, but man, that's my homework. Go out and read Seneca letter 91. So,